Hey, thanks for stopping by today. Today we're going to talk about doing stamps on your CO2 laser. It's a simple and fun project. I've had lots of requests to do this video, so we're going to get her done today. I ordered a simple kit on Amazon. I'll leave the link in the description below. And the first thing that I would highly recommend you do when you get your kit, this silicone rubber is kind of wadded up in this box. The first thing that you're going to want to do is lay this flat, put something heavy on it, and let it sit for a day or two so it becomes nice and flat. That way when you put it on your laser, it's going to not give you any kind of troubles, because remember, we've got to have those things flat. So it gives you a nice piece of stamp material. It also gives you I think 8 or 10 little blocks. You can see they're going to be great. The first thing that we're going to do in our project is measure up this block, because we're going to match our stamp with the size of this block. We're going to do a paid stamp, something simple, easy, and it's just the idea that I want to get across today. A couple of things that you're going to want to keep in mind when you're doing a stamp. Your design needs to be mirrored. If it's not mirrored, when you go ahead and engrave it and then put it on your stamp block, it's going to be backwards. So you want to make sure to mirror your design. The other thing that a lot of people struggle with when they're doing stamps is they don't understand how the fill mode works in Lightburn. And what you have to do is you have to engrave away the negative space around your text. And a lot of people don't understand how they accomplish that. So we're going to spend a little time, and I'm going to show you how to do that. The concept, once you see how it works and what Lightburn needs, it's a piece of cake. Then you'll be able to create whatever kind of stamp you want. But it's that negative space that you've got to engrave away around that text is what's critically important when we're doing a stamp design. So the first thing we're going to do, we'll jump into Lightburn, we'll measure up this little block. That's going to be basically our extents of our project. We're going to generate paid, we're going to go ahead and mirror it. We're going to create some negative space from an engraved perspective. We're going to talk a little bit about settings. I'm going to engrave this on a 35100 Thunder Laser CO2. So without further ado, let's jump into Lightburn and get this thing designed, and we'll get her knocked out. Okay, let's start with the outline. So we have our outline, which is we measured our little wooden block. And our little wooden block is 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, so it's a nice little square. So we've got that. That's usually my frame color, so that is black. Then the next thing we're going to do is illustrate our engraving, and so I'll turn that on for you. That'll be second. And what I did is I put the word paid right in the middle. I generated a rectangle and offset it just a bit, and colored both the paid and the frame blue. You'll also notice that I have another blue line that's just outside of, or just inside the cut line. And here's kind of the secret of engraving negative space. If I only put this as a frame and this for the text, it's going to engrave this, and then it's going to not engrave this, and then it's going to engrave this. So it's going to be exactly the opposite. And so the way the fill command works in Lightburn is every time it crosses the same color that's grouped together. So you notice I've got a blue line here, blue line, blue line, blue line. This is all blue. And so when it crosses, it will engrave this, and then when it crosses another line, it will stop the laser. So there's not going to be any engraving in between these two lines, and it'll turn the laser back on, and then when it gets to the text, it will turn the laser off. And that's exactly what we want it to do. We want it to engrave the negative space away, so the only thing that's left is just this frame around the word paid. And so if I delete this, you'll notice that if I delete this and I preview it, turn this off. If I preview it, it's going to engrave exactly the opposite of what we want. So that's why we've got to put that extra blue box out there. in order for it to engrave. And so now, if I preview it, turn this output off here. Now it's going to do exactly what we want it to. Okay, so just remember, when you're doing a stamp, you've got a blue line out here, so it's going to be on, it's going to engrave this section, and then it's going to turn it off for this little frame. That's going to turn it back on, then it's going to turn it off. So it's off, on, off, on. And if you remember that, then you can do all kinds of really cool designs. So you'll notice that I've got my, my blue, which is my engrave layer, laid out. Let's take a look at the settings. Open that up. I'm on a Nova 35100 Thunder machine. I'm going to engrave this at 325 millimeters per second at 75% power, and I'm going to be right at 400 lines per inch, one pass. One pass on a larger machine. If you've got a 60 watt, you might want to do two passes, just because of the power percentage that I'm using here. So if you're on a 60 watt machine, using two passes at a lower setting works fine. Okay, then the last part of the design I've got to worry about is my cut line. And my cut line is going to be just inside of this engraved area. So if I turn this on, you're going to notice that I've generated a rectangle, or excuse me, a square that's just inside the engraved area. In other words, I don't want a lip on the outside edge of this stamp. I want the cut line to be on the inside, or where we engraved it away. So the only thing that's proud on this stamp will be this frame and the word paid. So we've got our frame layer output off. We've got our engrave layer first, then our cut layer. Let's look at our cut settings. Our cut settings are going to be high air, 60 power and 14 millimeters per second speed. One pass cuts it beautifully. I like this gray laser stamp material better than I do the orange stuff. I've used both, but I like the gray much better. Now, the only other thing we've got to do is, remember, we've got to flip this around. Otherwise, this is not going to work. So we're going to highlight just the text, come up here to our mirror tools, and mirror it horizontally. And now we should be ready to go. So we've got that. Let's just select this. I've got my cut selected graphics, my use selected origin, and optimized cut path enabled, so I can select what I want to go to the laser. And you can see that it's going to go ahead. Everything in black is going to be engraved away. Everything in white is going to stay, and that's going to make us a perfect little stamp. It's going to take us about 2 minutes to do. Not hard at all. Only other thing we want to do is we want to check to make sure our layer sequence is right. So engrave is going to be first, and then our cut. Our black layer, which is our frame layer, should be, output should be off, and we're ready to go to the laser. Okay, we've got our material on the laser. This is an 1.5" lens. I'm focused at 10 millimeters. I don't defocus when I do stamps. I'm always in focus. I'm using user origin. I've set the origin on the laser. We'll go ahead and frame it right quick. Just to make sure, I'm going to turn on the fan, so excuse the noise. And let's go ahead and get this engraved. Okay, let's do this. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little LA Awesome on here and take a toothbrush and give it a quick scrub. Really, you don't need much. I'm just going to clean it up some. This is quite a bit cleaner than the orange stuff, in my opinion. And we're just going to get this stuff and then just wipe it off, front and back. And look at that. We have ourselves a paid stamp. Now all we've got to do is take some rubber cement and glue it on the back of one of our pre-done blocks that we got on our kit, and engrave the top so we know what stamp it is, and we'll have a nice little stamp. Okay, next we're just going to go ahead and put a little bit of rubber cement. This is just Elmer's rubber cement. I find that this rubber cement works the best for these stamps. Just a light coat on both the back of the rubber. You just want to make sure you get the edges well, because if you don't, it will peel up just a little bit. Okay? Even this out. You don't need a lot. A whole bunch is not good. Just a nice even coat. And just let that dry for about 3 or 4 minutes. And then we're going to go ahead and take that, put it there, put something heavy on it, and that part of it will be done. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes. We just lined this up with this and put something heavy on it. And it's all nice and dry now, so we're good to go. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and engrave this same thing so you can tell from the top which stamp it is. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and do our engraving on top. Let's jump back into Lightburn and get that design changed so we can go ahead and engrave this. Okay, so we're back in Lightburn and we just want to change our design so we can engrave on the top of our stamp. So we'll see, we know what the stamp is when it's face down. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of my red cut line because I don't need it anymore. Now if you wanted to, if you wanted to keep this, for what I would do is just come in here, right mouse click, duplicate, bring this over here, leave this one alone, and then we can come over here and make this our engraving area. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of our red. We don't need our red because there is no cut. We're going to go ahead and get rid of this outside blue line because we are not reverse engraving anymore. We are just straight engraving. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of the red, get rid of the blue. We've got our black left. That will, that's what we want. We want to leave this because we're going to have to frame that laser to make sure this is centered. Then, because we're not reversing the design, we're going to want to pick that and put it back like so. And then we need to change our, we'll just go with a different color here. Blue is always my engraved color, so I always like blue. We're going to go fill. We'll open this up. We'll make it a nice dark engrave at maybe 350 at 30. And no air. We're going to go normal at, we'll go 375. This will be a real dark, deep engrave. Needs to be 0. 1 passes, crosshatch, no air, we're good to go. Here we go. We're going to preview that. That's exactly what we want to engrave. And then we're going to leave this on just to frame it so we can go ahead and line up our the top of our stamp block. So we're ready to go. So we'll jump back in the laser And we'll get this part framed up. And make sure that when I frame this, I can actually frame this right from Lightburn. So I can go ahead and stick that block underneath there and hit frame, since this is the only thing I got selected. Get it ready to go, and then we know that this will line up just right. So I'm going to go ahead and get this block framed up, and we'll go to the laser. Okay, we've got our little block of wood with our origin set at the top left-hand corner. I've pushed the origin button on the controller. I'm going to go ahead and frame this in Lightburn right quick. I'm going to push the frame button. And you can see that framed it out pretty well, so I know that that design is going to be in the middle. We'll do it one more time. Great, I'm good to go. So next I'll go ahead and get this loaded and we'll get it engraved. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go, moment of truth. Brand new stamp pad. What we're going to do is we're just going to press down pretty evenly. It's usually take a couple of times. Push down. Boom, there it is. Well, as you can see, a project like this is not too hard to get done once you understand some basic concepts. I sure appreciate you hanging in there with me. Give me a thumbs up if you like the content. Subscribe if you haven't. We're at about 23,300 subscribers now. Love that. The other thing is, I want to hear from you. This is the first project I'm filming on the brand new camera that I purchased. It's shot in 4K, so it should be much clearer. If it's not, make sure that you have the resolution on your YouTube cranked up so you can enjoy the crystal clear video that I'm producing. Until next time, really appreciate it. Thanks and have a great day.